Taiwan's main opposition party has set out its energy policy ahead of next year's elections. Landslides in central Taiwan shed light on a deeper issue. We take a look at Taiwanese chip giant TSMC's unprecedented expansion into Europe. Plus,
from a loving pet to an invasive species in the wild being put down by the government, we take a look why.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Election campaigns are gearing up in Taiwan, and the three main parties are laying out their policy platforms. On Wednesday, the main opposition candidate announced his party's energy policy, stressing his support for nuclear power. Sally Jensen has more.
Hou Yu-ih, the presidential candidate for the opposition Kuomintang, or KMT, has just announced his party's energy policy ahead of next year's general election. The controversial issue of nuclear energy is front and center at this press conference in New Taipei City, with Hou reiterating his support for nuclear power.
我从头到尾没有反对过核电，以核减煤，因为全世界国际的趋势都是用核电慢慢在取代化石燃料。
Taiwan's current energy mix is heavily skewed toward imported fossil fuels, mostly coal and gas. Around 10% is nuclear and a similar amount is renewable energy. Hou Yu-ih wants to completely replace coal with nuclear by 2040 and include it under the umbrella of green energy. That contrasts starkly with the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP's, fiercely anti-nuclear stance. It has been working to phase out nuclear energy in the country by 2025. The topic is highly divisive among the Taiwanese public, with a significant minority expressing support for nuclear. Taiwan's Ministry of Economic Affairs has responded to the KMT's energy proposal, saying it is not in line with international renewable energy commitments. Other factors for consideration in each party's energy policy are energy security in the face of growing demand and threats from China, which claims Taiwan as its own territory. Added to that are the climate and ecological crises. This has led Taiwan to rethink its reliance on fossil fuels and implement a net zero emissions target by 2050. There's still 5 months left until the election, enough time to see how the KMT's plans to expand nuclear will land with the public. With its energy policy now laid out, the KMT hopes to consolidate its identity as the pro-nuclear party in a bid to win over the country's voters. Eason Chen and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
Japan's former Prime Minister Aso Taro has touted closer ties between Taiwan and Japan. This comes amid rising cross-strait tensions with China and ahead of Taiwan's presidential elections early next year.
総統候補の民進党の候補者である来候補にも今日昼食をご一緒させていただき、台湾に対する決意のほども伺わせていただき、我々どもとしては極めて安心をいただいたところでもあります。
Aso is on a 3-day visit to Taiwan and is the most senior Japanese political official to visit since the early 1970s. He has met with President Tsai Ing-wen and spoke at an Indo-Pacific Security Forum in the capital Taipei. In a speech, Aso said Japan and the United States should show resolve in defending Taiwan if the country was attacked. Taiwan's top weapons maker has conducted a missile test in the southern city of Pingdong. The Zhongshan Institute was testing its Zhongfeng 3 anti-ship missile. Military enthusiasts were up early to watch the test at 7 in the morning on Wednesday. Taiwan has stepped up its domestic missile production, with annual output expected to surpass 1,000 missiles by the end of the year. An army sergeant has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for stealing military secrets and selling them online. The sergeant, surnamed Tsai, admitted to his crimes during his trial. He had brought personal devices into his military camp to access materials between 2020 and 2022 while he was serving in Penghu Defense Command. He then sold those files to an unknown person online. Tsai must also hand over the roughly $40,000 he made illegally. Taiwan is seeing more landslides and flooding as it recovers from Typhoon Khanun. That's as seasonal rain swamped the island's mountainous interior. John Van Tres has this report.
In rural Kaohsiung, mountainsides are crumbling as heavy rains overwhelm them. Typhoon Khanun left Taiwan days ago, but the country south is still under a heavy rain advisory for summer monsoons. The nonstop rain means work crews are busy, cleaning up the latest damage while also fixing the destruction left by last week's storm. On Tuesday, they managed to restore pedestrian access to 3 villages cut off when the typhoon took out a bridge. The damage spills over the border into neighboring Pingdong County. Roads are cut off, and crews have been busy restoring power to several hundred residents. More rain is forecast for the south going into next week, meaning the region's far from being in the clear. Justin Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
More than 60 people are still stranded in a township in central Taiwan after landslides and flooding caused by typhoons. Rescue workers are delivering supplies and getting people out, but the underlying causes of the landslides go deeper. Hou Yu-ih reports.
This is Zhongyong Bridge. It is one of only a handful of access points to Renai Township, located in a mountainous region in central Taiwan. Dozens of people are stranded on the mountain after 2 recent typhoons triggered flooding and landslides around the area, leaving the bridge too unstable to cross and hampering relief efforts. But local groups are still working to get needed supplies up the mountain.
我们这边配送的物资都是以水，然后干粮。现在比较多的是老人家跟小朋友，所以也包含了婴幼儿的奶粉、成人的奶粉。
Experts in hazard prevention say the landslides were not unexpected. The area has already seen significant land shifts, and the heavy rainfall brought on by the 2 typhoons was always likely to cause further problems.
You can see the mountains is gradually sliding. And the sliding is very smooth, it's quite slowly, but after if the heavy rainfall, the sliding accelerates during the event. Local people, they are not aware of it. If you look far away, the difference is huge. But you just look at your neighbor is sliding with you.
There are several reasons for this shifting land. There has been a rise in land development alongside an uptick in tourism in the area, and extreme weather events have increased as the climate crisis worsens. The 2 typhoons passing within a few days of each other were the final trigger.
They cannot endure so much tourists and the water and the wastewater they produced, and also the farmer, they want to create more money from the vegetables, teas, and they also will induce more hazard.
It's not just the experts. Residents agree.
也因为现在气候极端的变化，所以很多的状况其实都是比过去更严重，像雨势啊，或者是雨量，这个都来得比以前更大，所以这个可能都是未来大家在生活上面都要做更多的一些因应的措施。
As rainfall gets heavier and storms get stronger, long-term issues of overdevelopment and climate change in the area will need to be addressed to keep these remote townships habitable. Devin Tsai and Hou Yu-ih for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwanese chip giant TSMC is set to build its first European factory in Germany. The move has been welcomed by German industry leaders who want to bring supply chains closer to home. Joyce Zeng reports.
It's official. TSMC is setting up shop in Europe. After years of talks, the world's largest contract chipmaker has decided to greenlight a new factory in Dresden, the capital of Germany's eastern state of Saxony. The area is a powerhouse of European chip production, with 1 in 3 chips made in Europe coming from Saxony. Building on that momentum, TSMC has said it will invest up to $3.8 billion in a joint venture for the new Dresden factory. The Taiwanese chip giant will own 70% of it, while Germany's Bosch and Infineon and the Netherlands' NXP will each own 10%. The site won't be making TSMC's most advanced chips either. Those will be produced exclusively in Taiwan, with the company's Kaohsiung site set to be the latest to start producing state-of-the-art 2-nanometer technology. The proposed site in Germany will instead focus on more mature technologies for automotive use. Some analysts say Europe's strong industrial history will likely be an advantage here.
Even if Germany and Europe maybe doesn't have these big global companies that everyone knows, there are a lot of niche technologies where German and European companies are still leading, including in semiconductors.
This comes as the US and China, the world's top superpowers, battle for global tech supremacy. Both sides have been working to ramp up chip-making capabilities through new laws and by issuing strict controls and even bans against each other. It's caused unease among some in Europe.
Europe is somewhat caught in the middle because technologically we both depend in certain technologies on the US and in other technologies on China. Europe wants to just be less dependent on other powers as these geopolitical tensions rise.
Aside from governments, private companies have also been moving to diversify production and supply chains. That includes TSMC with its growing list of overseas investments. Until 2022, the chip giant's only factory outside of Taiwan was in Nanjing, China. Now it's building a plant in Japan in a joint venture with Sony, and one in the western U.S. state of Arizona. TSMC has already invested $40 billion in that highly anticipated plant. The proposed fab in Germany now joins the growing list. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing. TSMC has already delayed its Arizona plant's start date due to shortages of skilled labor, a problem some say might also be an issue for its German factory.
德国的工会其实他们的势力恐怕会比美国更加的大，而且更加的强悍。而且不要忘掉，德国本身还有绿党、工党，这些的话都是非常左翼的政党。
Whether TSMC will be able to fill up its Dresden site with the right talent is yet to be seen. But for the time being, the new investment could help build enthusiasm, persuading others in the supply chain to set their sights on Europe. Andy Xue and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
Paraguay's President-elect Santiago Peña says Taiwan's development of small and medium-sized industries is a model for his country. Have a listen.
Le fui a transmitir que estos lazos de amistad no es solamente nostalgia, no es solamente amistad, sino también es un convencimiento que en el camino del desarrollo del Paraguay hacia una economía industrializada, el modelo de desarrollo de pequeñas y medianas industrias, de integración de clúster que ha desarrollado Taiwán puede ser una gran enseñanza para nosotros. Y por supuesto agradecer todo lo que han hecho históricamente por Paraguay.
Peña's comments came in an interview with Reuters. He will be inaugurated to Paraguay's top post on August 15th. Taiwanese Vice President Chengdu will attend a ceremony on Taiwan's behalf. Paraguay is Taiwan's last diplomatic ally in South America, following years of Chinese efforts to undermine Taiwanese foreign relations. The World University Games wrapped up in Chengdu, China on Tuesday. Leslie Liao takes a look at how Taiwan performed.
10 gold, 17 silver, and 19 bronze. That was Taiwan's medal haul at the World University Games, also known as the Universiade, in Chengdu, China. The competition is seen as the Olympics for student athletes. Taiwan sent a team of 210 to take part, and the roster came up big for the island nation. This year, Taiwan walked away with 46 medals, ranking 8th overall, excelling in athletics, badminton, gymnastics, tennis, and martial arts. 5 of the country's gold medals came from tennis. The only time Taiwan has performed better was in 2017 when it hosted the Universiade. On Wednesday, President Tsai Ing-wen met with the team to congratulate them.
我要谢谢各位选手，让世界看到台湾的体育的实力。
But these athletes can't rest easy just yet. Many of them now need to prepare for the Asian Games at the end of September, also in China. Then it's on to the 2024 Olympics in Paris.
这块奖牌非常不容易，能够创造这样的历史，也希望保持这样的气势，能够继续延续到接下来的赛事。也祝福大家都能够创造更好的成绩。
If Taiwan's Universiade results are any indication, the country has a great deal of momentum going into the challenges to come. Joseph Wu and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, environmental experts suspect a U.S. company has been illegally dumping waste at its factory site before it leaves Taiwan.
Start your weekend with a cup of coffee and a moment to reflect on what happened this week.
Hello and welcome.
We've got you covered, from defense and politics to high tech and the arts.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
You make the coffee,
we make the news.
Here's what happened on TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus. For more stories about virtual reality and more, download the TaiwanPlus app.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. The U.S. chemicals firm Chemours is set to end its operations in Taiwan. Environmental experts have found illegal waste around the site of its factory, and they suspect the company is to blame. Bing Wang reports.
Environmental inspectors examined farmland in Taoyuan, northwestern Taiwan, for illegal contamination. This comes after a landowner alleged that American chemical company Chemours used their land to illegally store the waste from titanium production in violation of Taiwanese environmental law. Chemours announced 2 weeks ago that it would close its plant in Taiwan because the company was operating at a loss there. This pile of red soil was found meters away from the factory without any plant growth. It is suspected that underneath the red soil, 2,000 to 3,000 tons of waste was buried. After repeated calls from surrounding farmers to take action, Taoyuan City responded, saying it imposed $3,000 in fines on Chemours in 2016. And in 2019, the company was forced to pay $2,000 for illegally dumping waste on agricultural land. It's not the first time an American company disposed of waste illegally before leaving Taiwan. In 2022, Taiwan Supreme Court ruled in favor of workers at the now-defunct Radio Corporation of America's factory in Taoyuan. More than 1,300 employees developed cancer after being exposed to chemicals there. The U.S. company was also found to have dumped toxic waste, polluting water nearby, and wildlife. If there isn't action on cleaning up the land, the Chemours case is also expected to go to the courts, as workers and neighboring farmers intend to pursue justice against any wrongdoing. Patrick Chen and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
China has once again asked the Philippines to remove a grounded warship from a disputed shoal in the South China Sea. This comes after Manila earlier rejected Beijing's demand. The Philippines uses the World War II-era vessel as a military outpost. On Saturday, the Chinese Coast Guard used water cannons against a Philippine boat delivering supplies to the garrison there. It prompted international criticism of China and has sparked concern that the tension in the region could spiral. Consumer prices fell in China last month. That makes it the first of the world's major economies to experience deflation in nearly 2 years. China's Statistics Bureau says the consumer price index dropped 0.3% year-on-year in July. Economists say the country is struggling with low demand at home and from abroad. China's central bank says the economy still needs time to recover after the pandemic. Taiwanese scout groups have been evacuated from the World Scout Jamboree in South Korea. Scorching heat, safety worries, and a looming typhoon forced organizers to pull tens of thousands of people from the campsite. Now locals and participants are reflecting on what went wrong. Stosh Butler reports.
For these scouts in South Korea, it's bye-bye Buan. The county in Korea's southwest was hosting the World Scout Jamboree, but the campsite had to close sooner than planned. It was the first global scout gathering since the pandemic, but it faced difficulty from the start. Temperatures of up to 34 degrees Celsius gave hundreds of scouts heat stroke, and some delegations, like the US and UK's, criticised the site's food and sanitation.
The first is the sanitation. We were concerned that the toilets weren't being cleaned frequently enough, there wasn't soap in there, and it wasn't safe, and there was rubbish building up as well.
The UK and US pulled out early, and with a typhoon now due to strike, authorities announced they'd evacuate the campsite.
참가자들의 안전한 이동을 위하여 경찰 헬기 4대가 항공에서 지휘를 하고 있고 273대의 순찰차 등이 에스코트를 하고 있습니다.
Tens of thousands of scouts, including Taiwan's, will now stay in temporary housing, mostly around the capital, Seoul. The national government's encouraging cities to arrange entertainment, but locals worry the damage to South Korea's reputation is already done.
물론 입지 선정이 잘못돼가지고 문제가 있지만 행사를 좀 말끔하게 했어야 되는데 잘 못한 거는 문제가 있다고 생각을 해요. 그래서 앞으로의 국제대회 유치나 그런 마이스 산업에 있어서 영향을 끼치지 않을까, 그게 우려되는 거죠.
그만큼 또 새만금 측에서 제대로 피드백이나 아니면 가이드라인이나 이런 걸 제대로 안 줬기 때문에.
But at the campsite, the scouts themselves were more upbeat.
For me, it's part of the experience. So I'll never forget this jamboree because it was the one where we had to go and evacuate.
No, of course there is too much difficult, but we are scouts and we solve all this difficult. So little difficult is not very hard for us.
Most of the scouts have now been evacuated, and with clouds and heavy rain already enveloping the south of the peninsula, the Jamboree's organisers have had to rethink their closing ceremony, doing their best despite the challenges to live up to the Scout motto, to always be prepared. John Su and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
8 South American countries are launching an alliance to protect the Amazon, the world's biggest rainforest. The agreement aims to promote sustainable development and strengthen law enforcement cooperation. But at a meeting in Brazil, the countries failed to agree on a common goal for ending deforestation. Instead, countries will pursue their own deforestation targets. Brazil's President Lula da Silva had been pushing for the region to agree to end deforestation by 2030. Green iguanas are a big problem in Taiwan. Once popular as pets, many of these lizards were abandoned in the wild, where their numbers boomed. Our reporter Sandy Chi looks at how these animals went from cherished pets to an invasive species.
This is Pan Yuling and her pet green iguana, Marno. Green iguanas originally come from Central and South America. But Marno has been living with Pan in Taipei for the past 8 years. It's clear that Pan and Marno are a good pairing, and the pet lizard lives in a loving and nurturing environment. But this hasn't been the case for thousands of other iguanas that were imported over the decades. In the early 2000s, around 100,000 of them were imported to Taiwan as pets. But years later, owners started to abandon them, and today they have become an invasive species in southern Taiwan.
弃养的其实原因就是因为它真的长得太大了，它只是一开始小时候就长得就有那小朋友这样小小一只而已，它觉得很可爱，然后它长大，你觉得那时候像什么那库斯拉。
And after so many were abandoned, the wild green iguana population here exploded. It's estimated that there are now over 100,000 in the wilderness. And these are not small animals, like Typhoon here.
Typhoon is about 130 centimeters in length, and it is said the biggest one can grow up to 2 meters.
Wild iguanas are usually found in southern Taiwan, where the weather is more suitable for them, usually near farmlands, ponds, and riversides. And this has caused a lot of problems. As well as tearing up local farmlands while looking for food, the high number of iguanas roaming on roads has led to more traffic accidents. Experts are also worried about the parasites the green iguanas carry and what effect they could have on lizards that are native to Taiwan.
We've not just imported iguana themselves, we also imported their parasites and their pathogens. And now we are worried about whether this parasite or pathogen will spread out, because that will probably reduce the fitness of our local lizards or local reptiles species.
To tackle this problem, the government has been working for the last 7 years to remove green iguanas from the wild. In 2017, around 2,000 of them were removed, a number that grew to over 40,000 in 2022. After catching them, officials usually hand the lizards over to animal experts to put them down. This follows strict procedures to ensure minimal suffering. Animal experts say this is the best way to handle invasive species like iguanas, as sending them back to their homeland requires too many procedures and regulations. But culling the animals has upset a lot of people who see it as an act of cruelty.
很痛，真的很痛，因为它在我们家是宝。
It is much easier for us to conserve the endangered species because we keep them alive. But again, for deal with the invasive species, we need to put these invasive animals or invasive plants into deaths. So not many people want to do that.
The green iguana population boom is an increasingly serious problem for Taiwan, and there's no option that everyone will agree on. While many are calling for measures to stop the iguanas from damaging farmlands and the local ecology, others feel it's cruel to cull the animals, especially since it's not the iguanas' fault they were abandoned in the wild in the first place. Ethan Chen and Tani Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, today we leave you with images of the Flower Festival at Medellin, the second largest city in Colombia. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.